Here to react to the president's most recent photo op, Republican strategist Alice Stewart and Democrat strategist Ben Wickler. Alice and Ben, we welcome you both here to America's Forum.
Great to be with you, JD.
It's good to have you, Alice. And Alice checking in from Arkansas, been there in New York. Alice, forgive me, but rather than ladies first, I've got to go to Ben since we've been talking about the president and the seeming discrepancy. Ben, there's the president decrying political theater. What was that deal in Denver the other day? Shooting pool, having a couple of pops. Was that not a kind of theater as well?
You know, there's a theater of shooting pool. There's a theater of whether he's going to give in to Republican critics who want him to make this visit. All of this, to me, is the really small stuff compared to what's at the heart of this situation, which is a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. If you look at where these kids are coming from, Guatemala, Honduras, these are countries right now that are more dangerous than Iraq at the height of the insurgency in 2007. And I think, you know, as a country, we need to take a step back from the partisan politics. You know, frankly, both parties need to take a step back from this and think about what does this mean for the soul of our country. I actually find myself on the same side as Glenn Beck on this thing. I think this is a humanitarian crisis that calls out to all of us to treat these kids with compassion and recognize that they're fleeing for their lives. America at its best gives people shelter when they are in danger, and that is what we need to be focused on right now. Not the question of who's showing up at which place to get their picture taken.
But Ben, let's follow that reasoning. If this is a crisis of gigantic proportions, why wouldn't the president visit the border? Because he's got a big fundraiser going on. He's down there to raise money for the very political campaigns and the partisan activity you just derided. In fact, Henry Cuellar, Texas Democrat with whom I served in Congress, said this could be Mr. Obama's, quote, Katrina moment, seeming to be disengaged. Certainly you can see that, Ben.
The difference between this and Katrina is that during Hurricane Katrina, the president wasn't forcefully calling for a multi-billion-dollar package of measures that would actually address the crisis. And that's what President Obama is doing. I think that, you know, the question of where the president shows up is dwarfed by the question of what the president actually does and what the president advocates. And in this case, there's no question that President Obama is very focused and very engaged on the issue.
All right, fair enough. We got to turn to Alice because she's been waiting patiently. Alice, you have heard Ben offer his thoughts. Your take on the president showing up for a photo op, playing pool in Denver, but unwilling to go to the border in Texas.
Well, he may have been playing pool in Denver, but he's behind the eight ball in Texas and all the border states. Because you think back when he was running for president in 2008, he promised to address the immigration issue. He had both houses, the House and the Senate under Democrat control, and did absolutely zero. And since that time, he has virtually rolled out the red carpet for illegal immigrants to come into this country, and then promising virtual amnesty for them. And you talk about a scandal, a humanitarian crisis. Ben refers to this. Finally, Democrats are referring to it as a crisis. The VA scandal is a humanitarian crisis, yet the president's not asking for $4 billion to solve that. Here's the situation here is that this has been accumulation of years of the Democrats in this administration rolling out the red carpet, signaling to illegal immigrants, you come here, we will provide housing, we'll make it a safe haven for you, and eventually we'll grant amnesty. And now we have this porous border, and he's calling it emergency situation. Rick Perry has said this is a national emergency for quite some time. We need boots on the ground. But you look at this $4 billion, very small percentage of that actually goes to the number one priority, which is securing the border. That's going to be a serious problem, and that's why Republicans are showing some pushback, because it doesn't address the real problem, which is border security.
Well, Ben, I'd like to get both of your take on some of the comments coming from Congress this week, talking about the necessity to go ahead and get this passed. And I'm specifically talking about Harry Reid saying, hey, we can work out the details later on this nearly $4 billion. Ben, do you think that line is really going to work as the Democrats try to pressure Republicans into doing something here?
I think, you know, on this and broadly on the issue of the immigration reform, Republicans need to do a gut check about whether they actually care enough to take any kind of action. Because, there were 2 years when the Democrats had a majority in both houses. There have been a whole bunch of years since 2010. It's 2014 now, and Republicans have steadfastly refused to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Now, we've seen immigration in this country actually go down throughout Obama's presidency. What we're seeing right now is a crisis sparked by incredible levels of violence in these countries, where families are making this wrenching decision that the only way that they can protect their kids' lives is if the kids try to make this incredibly dangerous journey.
All right, Ben,
so,
we're not, that's the line we're hearing from Democrats, and we've heard it from the president and so forth and so on. Alice, jump in here because we want to get your take on what Ben just said.
Well, in response to what Harry Reid said, that is exactly what Nancy Pelosi said with Obamacare. We have to pass this bill before we can find out what's in it. Here, now the Democrats are saying, approve this money and we'll figure out how we can spend it later. That's not how it works. That's not how it should work. And Congress has control of the purse, and they should be able to have a lot more discretion. We don't need, right now, we can all agree, comprehensive immigration has not worked, but let's look at it piecemeal. And the top priority Republicans have always had is to secure the border. And there has never been assurances for that, and there still is not any assurance for that.
Alice,
and that's what needs to happen first and foremost.
Only about a minute remains. While we're talking about money, the notion that the White House is going to send over $250 million new aid to the Central American countries, those nations sending these minors here, is this like a payoff to these countries? Why on earth do you think the president wants to send more money to those Central American countries?
That's a mistake. Any money we spend to house them and take care of them here in our country should come out of whatever aid we're giving to them in their country. Look, America is the most generous nation in the world. We are a compassionate nation. But at some point, we have to realize, look, if you're going to send your people here and we're going to take care of them here, we're going to have to cut back somewhere. And the key here, the number one priority that we need to hear, and I think Cuellar and them are working on this, we need to focus on deporting these people back to where they came from, because that's going to, if we don't start that process and make that abundantly clear to those in Central America, we're going to continue to see bus loads and train loads of them coming here, and plane loads, because we need to work on the deportation, sending them back home, and that is
Alice,
another priority in addition to securing the border.
We do appreciate that, and Ben, gestures speak volumes. We can see you shaking your head. We will revisit this issue in the days to come. Thanks to you both, and we look forward to another spirited discussion. So you heard the take from the